Let's go back in time. It's 1987. You're in Milan. The fashion is loud, the hair is big, and the economy? Oh, the economy is absolutely roaring. It feels like everyone is making money. This was the era of il sorpasso, the moment Italy officially overtook the UK to become the fifth largest economy in the entire world. The energy is electric. You know, it really feels like the party is never, ever going to end.
But let's snap back to today. That party didn't just end. It's like the music screeched to a halt, and the lights never came back on. Italy hasn't just slowed down, it has completely flatlined. I mean, the contrast between then and now is just staggering. For over 20 years, it's been the only major developed economy to experience basically zero growth. Its GDP per capita is stuck in a time loop, just hovering around the same level it was when the first Matrix movie came out. So what on earth happened? How did this roaring engine of Europe just stall out so completely?
All right, let's get into it. To really understand what's happening now, we have to dissect the past. So in this explainer, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're performing an autopsy, really, on what was once one of the world's most vibrant economies. We're on the hunt for the root causes of this long, slow economic sickness.
So, our first stop is the ghost in the room. Italy's old currency, the lira. You just can't understand why Italy is struggling today without understanding how it used to succeed. And believe me, I'm using the word succeed with some massive air quotes.
See, back in the 70s and 80s, Italy had this secret economic weapon. But it wasn't German engineering, it wasn't Silicon Valley innovation, nope, it was a printing press. The national strategy was basically this thing called competitive devaluation. And what that means is, whenever Italian products got too expensive on the world market, the government would just print more lira. This made the currency weaker, which instantly made Italian exports, like washing machines or Fiat cars, way cheaper for everyone else to buy.
But here's the catch. This was no free lunch. Devaluing the currency made all the stuff Italy had to import, like oil and raw materials, way more expensive, and that caused inflation. So to deal with that, Italy had a system called the Scala Mobile, which automatically raised people's wages to match inflation. But of course, higher wages hurt business profits, so what did? They pressured the government to devalue the currency all over again. It was just this vicious, self-destructive cycle, a full-blown addiction.
And then, 1999, Italy joins the euro. This was basically the equivalent of flushing an attic stash right down the toilet. All of a sudden, that magic button was gone. Italian companies couldn't rely on a cheap currency to compete anymore. They had to fight on quality, on innovation, on being efficient. And after decades of taking the easy way out, well, those muscles just weren't there. The curtain fell, and the economy was completely exposed.
So the currency drug was gone. Surely Italian businesses adapted, right? Learned to compete? Nope. And this brings us to what might be the single most terrifying part of this whole story, the complete and total collapse of productivity. Just let this number sink in for a second. 0%. Since joining the euro, Italy's ability to get more output from its workers and its capital hasn't improved at all. In fact, in some areas, it's actually gone backwards. So while the rest of the developed world was figuring out how to get more efficient, Italy just stopped.
So why? Well, it's what some people call the Peter Pan syndrome of Italian business. They just never grow up. The entire economy is dominated by these tiny microfirms. We're talking over 90% of all businesses having fewer than 10 employees. It's like a kind of dwarfism of Italian capitalism. And the brutal truth is, tiny little companies don't innovate, they don't invest in R&D, and they really can't compete on a global scale.
And this isn't an accident. The state actually discourages growth. The second a business hires its 15th employee, a whole mountain of rigid, punishing labor laws kicks in. So what do rational business owners do? They just stop at 14 employees. You couple that with a culture of dynastic management where the business gets passed down to family instead of professional managers, and you've got a perfect recipe for total stagnation.
Okay, so if the productivity problem is a chronic illness, this next issue is like terminal cancer. You simply can't have economic growth without people. You need workers to produce things, and you need consumers to buy them. Well, Italy is running out of both.
To keep a population stable, a country needs a fertility rate of about 2.1 children per woman. Italy is at 1.2. They aren't just shrinking, they are practically evaporating. Last year, Italy recorded fewer births than at any point since the country was first unified back in 1861. Think about that. Fewer babies being born than during World War I. It's just astounding.
And this demographic collapse has a huge economic consequence, the pension bomb.
Italy spends a staggering 17% of its entire GDP on pensions. That's one of the highest rates in the world. And that's money that can't be spent on schools or high-speed internet or tax cuts for the young people who have to pay for it all. What this creates is what economists call an inverted pyramid. You know, in a healthy country, you've got this wide base of young workers supporting a small number of retirees at the top. Italy has the exact opposite. It's this massive, top-heavy generation of pensioners being supported by an ever-shrinking base of young people. It's an economic structure that simply cannot last.
Okay, but let's say you're brave. You ignore the currency problem, the productivity crisis, the demographics, and you decide you're going to start a business in Italy. Well, welcome to hell. Or, to be more accurate, the bureaucratic inferno.
It's estimated that Italy has 150,000 laws on the books. Just for comparison, Germany has about 5,000. It is a legal jungle so dense that even the regulators themselves don't always know what's legal and what isn't. It just creates a culture of total paralysis.
And the real-world cost of all that red tape is just staggering. Take the Salerno-Reggio Calabria highway project. It became a national laughingstock. It took over half a century, 50 years, to complete one single piece of critical infrastructure. I mean, how can you possibly run a modern economy when it takes 50 years to build a road?
The Italian state doesn't just tax your money, it taxes your time. If somebody refuses to pay you for a job, it takes, on average, nearly 3 years to resolve it in court. Foreign investors see this chaos, the slow courts, the constantly changing rules like that super bonus home renovation scheme that just spiraled out of control, and they say, no thanks. They take their money to Poland or to Spain, and Italy misses out on billions.
So what do you do if you're a smart, ambitious 25-year-old Italian with a master's degree and you're looking at this environment? You leave. And this is maybe the most heartbreaking part of the whole story, the mass exodus of Italy's future. The numbers just tell the whole story. An entry-level engineer in Milan might make 1,400 euros a month. That exact same engineer can hop on a cheap flight to Munich and instantly make 4,000. But it's not even just about the money, it's the gerontocracy, the rule by the old. Promotions are based on how long you've been there, not on how good you are. And young people just get tired of waiting their turn, so they buy a one-way ticket. Italy is literally educating its best and brightest and then handing them over to Germany and the UK for free. Which brings us to the final boss, the one massive issue that ties all the others together and basically prevents any easy escape: Italy's colossal national debt. The debt totals a staggering 2.9 trillion euros. That's about 140% of the country's entire economic output, and it's the chain that binds the nation. Every single year, Italy spends 80 to 90 billion euros just on interest payments. That's dead money that just vanishes into the bond market instead of building roads or funding startups or lowering taxes.
And this leads to a terrifying paradox. Italy is considered too big to fail. A default would probably destroy the euro and trigger a global financial crisis. But it's also too big to save. Unlike Greece, Italy is the third largest economy in the Eurozone. There just isn't enough money in all of Europe to bail it out. So it's trapped in this kind of zombie state, just praying that interest rates stay low and that the next big crisis doesn't push it over the edge.
So, is there any hope? Well, Italy has immense strengths. Made in Italy is a global superpower of a brand. Italians are fantastic savers, but to survive the 21st century, it needs nothing short of a cultural revolution, one that smashes the bureaucracy, empowers the young, and actually encourages growth. Because the alternative is just a slow, steady flight into irrelevance, becoming a beautiful, sinking museum for the rest of the world to visit. The choice is Italy's, but the clock has been ticking for a very, very long time.